Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the BrickFilmer Podcast, a podcast series where I answer your animation questions. Man, it's already like episode 6. It's been 3 months. I've been almost doing this podcast thing for like 3 months. That's pretty cool. Let's just keep this thing going. You guys have not disappointed with the amount of questions. I got 8 questions to answer in this podcast, and they are not short to answer questions. They're pretty good questions. So good job, guys, on all the questions I've been getting. I don't know if I'll be able to answer all of the questions in this episode, but I will definitely be sure to answer any of them that I don't catch in this episode in the next episode. So, with that said, let's move right into the first question, which is from LYT Creates. He asked, how do you make your thumbnails? This is a genuine question. I don't know how this would work on a podcast. Okay, I got you. I will try my best to describe how I make my thumbnails. So starting off, I use a software on my computer called Affinity Photo. And actually, the cool thing about Affinity Photo, when I got it, it was like $79. But now, they got bought out by a company called Canva, you might be familiar with. And they made the software completely free. How they're doing that, I'm not sure. I don't ask questions. But it is a really cool software to use, and I use it for every thumbnail I make, even this one that you're seeing right now. It's a really cool software to learn and get a good understanding of, because it can make some really cool thumbnails. It has the same capabilities as Adobe Lightroom or Adobe Photoshop. It's like Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop mixed together. It doesn't have every single feature that Adobe has, but it's once you get the hang of it, you can get similar results to what you would get from Adobe software, which is I don't know, combined would be $20 a month for $25 a month, something like that. You don't want to spend that kind of money. So yeah, if you're using a laptop for thumbnail design, which is what I would recommend Affinity Photo. But if you are just using your phone, you can use Canva. Canva has a free app where you can just design some thumbnails on there, make some simple stuff. It's pretty basics. That's why I recommend using a laptop. But for the phone, you can manage. But if you do have a laptop, I would highly recommend making thumbnails on your laptop. The same goes for editing, because it just has a lot more features and use cases. For how I actually piece together my thumbnails and come up with ideas and stuff, I'm still figuring that out myself. For instance, this dialogue tutorial that I just posted, I had the idea for the thumbnail to be similar to the thumbnail I made for the lighting tutorial, where it was split down the middle, and you had a black and white bad and good example, a split screen effect for the thumbnail. But I noticed that the split effect worked for a lighting tutorial, because you can notice a dark image from a bright image. So that thumbnail format worked for the lighting tutorial, but for a dialogue tutorial, it's harder to convey good dialogue and bad dialogue in a thumbnail. So that's why I resorted to just a picture of my minifigure with a microphone and just some simple text overlaid. And that thumbnails like those, you can make super simple on your phone using Canva, because there's no need to cut out your image or piece together different minifigures together or whatnot. So for thumbnails like that, you can just use like Canva on your phone. But yeah, that's kind of, you have to think really hard when it comes to making a thumbnail. Like to get people to actually be interested in your video, you have to package it well with the title and the thumbnail. And so giving a lot of thought and effort into crafting like the ideal thumbnail for your video, it definitely pays off in the long run. I would stay away from like just grabbing screenshots from your video. Like, if you could, but it just won't appeal. 9 times out of 10, it won't appeal to the average viewer and won't grab their attention. So I would highly recommend like giving some extra thought into crafting a thumbnail and getting really creative with it too. But don't go overboard. I'm not saying like go overboard. Get creative, but also keep your thumbnail as simple as possible so that the average person can glance at your thumbnail and like in a split second know exactly what it's about, or at least catch something in there that piques their curiosity so they want to learn more about what your video is. Hopefully that makes sense, but I say all of that to say, like, put a lot of effort and creative thought into crafting a thumbnail, because that is where that really determines whether your video gets clicked on or not. So it is very important. So yeah, that's what I do for thumbnails. Hopefully that helped. But yeah, moving on to the next question from Eamon Animations. I thought it was Eamon Studios. I could have been wrong. Let's see. He asked, I have a question. What do you believe is the best frame rate to use? And is there a frame rate you wish you were good at or would want to work with? Okay. I've been animating at 12 FPS for so long, I don't really want to work with any other frame rate for multiple reasons, but it just works for my style so well that I don't see any other frame rate working better. So I am like, call me biased, but you asked what frame rate do I believe is the best to use? 12 FPS. Just because it is a great balance between efficiency and effectiveness. What I mean by that is like 12 FPS doesn't take as long to animate as say 18 FPS. But if done right, it gets similar results or even better results because it feels like a stop motion. You see, there's a point in frame rate where it gets so high that it doesn't feel like a stop motion anymore. It feels like a very buttery smooth animation. And that's not bad. I enjoy buttery smooth animations, and I try to make my animations as buttery smooth as they can be. But with a higher frame rate, you see what I'm saying? Like the higher frame rate makes it more is artificial the word? Not artificial, but like almost unnatural? I'm trying to find the right word. But I hope you see what I mean. Like, the lower frame rate gives it that stop motion aesthetic and just makes it more stylized. I like style in animation, and like a higher frame rate, sure, that's a style of its own, but it just kind of takes away from that appeal. It just looks too perfect. That's the word. I think perfect is the word. Like, the higher frame rate makes it look too perfect. Oh, is my audio peaking? I think, let me lower my audio a bit because I don't want to pop and crackle in your ears. Um, but yeah, like, it just looks too perfect, and that perfection is not what I'm chasing. For me personally, I don't know about other people, but for me personally, I'm not chasing perfection in my animations. I'm chasing style and like appeal, because perfection doesn't equal appeal and like satisfaction to the viewer. So, like, oftentimes it does, but there are also a lot of cases where making your animations imperfect, not in like a choppy sense. Don't get me wrong about that. Choppy is not good. Not in the choppy sense, but in like a just a lower frame rate sense where just it's a stop motion. Like, having a higher frame rate kind of takes away from the stop motion look. So, but that's my opinion. To each their own, of course. That's just my personal opinion on that. That's why I love animating at 12 FPS, because it just creates that really nice look to it, and forces me to get creative to make snappy movements, because I'll have to cut like ease in frames to like get a snappy movement, and still have to make it look smooth. And it's really fun to work with and a little challenging at times, but I overall really enjoy animating at 12 FPS. But with that said, if there were a frame rate I'd like to try out, it would probably be something like 18. I know I just said like higher frame rate takes away from the stop motion look, but I would like to animate at 18 FPS, like just once, like just if I had to choose, just to see like what it would look like and what I could do with it. But nah, I'm sticking with 12 FPS. It just works for me. So, yeah. That is my hot take on frame rates for this week. I feel like I talk about frame rates like every single episode, but hey, I'm here for it. Let's see. The next question we have is from Nate the Pilot. He asks, I got a good question for you. In the future, are you thinking of making warfare type stop motions like LCM Brick or JD Brick Productions? No. Why I say no is because I like comedies. I like animations that are funny and make people laugh. I'm not saying anything wrong is I'm not saying there's anything wrong with making war animations. Like, I know people that make war animations and they make it really good and it's really cool to watch. But that's just not the type of content that I want to make. I like to make just comedies that are just silly and goofy and, you know, make people like really, really laugh. Like, that's the type of content that I aim for, just goofy stuff. I try to steer away from like a lot of violence and stuff like that. Um, I'm not saying that war animations have to be bloody and gory. Like, there is an animator um called I Am Productions, and he makes amazing quality war animations, Lego stop motions. But he doesn't have any blood or gore in them. And like that to me, like, sure, that's not quote unquote realistic, but this is a stop motion. It's supposed to be kid friendly. So, like, just keeping it clean throughout the whole war animation, like, to me, that's like really cool. And that's something that I don't see very often. So, yeah, I think that's very cool. So, I'm not saying war animation is bad or anything, but it's not my style. It's not my thing. I just like comedies. They're just good comedies, not like forced comedies, but like comedies that just like roll right off the screen and just like they just transition from one funny moment to the next and it's just an overall enjoyable watch. That's the type of animations that I want to make. But yeah, that is my take on that question. Question number 4 from I was about to say Magna Cube. Mango Cube 1. He asked, if you know about cameras slash webcam, do you have any good budget-friendly webcam slash cameras under $150 suggestions for stop motion? Yes, I do. I would not recommend getting a DSLR for under $150. Like, maybe you could get like a T3i for like $200 with a lens on eBay. But if you're trying to go budget friendly, but just get out of the animating on your phone, which I very much understand, especially if your phone's causing like flickery problems, I would recommend getting a webcam, preferably the C920. I've heard some good things about that. I've actually been looking about the C920, like off and on eBay, and you can actually get one used for like $20 to $30. Like, and it's usually $100 new on Amazon, last I checked. And it's not like a scam or anything. Like, it's actually just people trying to get rid of their used webcams that they don't need anymore. And I think that's so cool. I might actually get one myself because my DSLR is so clunky. It works for like 80% of the animations I make, but for like action scenes where it has like a lot of camera movement, where I can't just get away with moving the base plate instead of the camera, like actual immersive camera movement, I want to get a webcam, and I might actually get a C920 myself, especially for like the Iron Squad. I'm gonna be having a bunch of like especially like one scene's gonna be really immersive, like one-er shot where it's a fight scene between a clone and some droids. And well, I won't spoil that, but let's just say it's gonna be like really cool. He's gonna go all Bruce Lee on them. And I want like a bunch of camera movement that like follows him around and tracks him as he like pounds these droids. And I think a webcam would be perfect for that. So I might just get a webcam, because a DSLR and a webcam as a duo, where the DSLR is doing 80% of the animation, but for like immersive camera movement, I just sneak in a webcam and go to town with it. Like, that would be like the ideal setup, and I might actually just do that. So yeah, in short, I would say go on eBay, get a webcam. It was a Logitech C920 S Pro. I don't know the difference between the regular one and the Pro version. I'm not too webcam savvy, but I know they're really cool for animation. And I've seen a couple people use the C920, and I like the results. I think there were some people, I don't know if it was on a C920, but there were some people that were complaining about like it made the image noisy, like it doesn't do good in low light. But then I've heard people say that it does great in low light. So I don't know. I have plenty of lights, so I don't have to worry about low light stuff. But you know, I'm not 100% sure on that. So I really want to get a webcam just to really see for myself if it's as good as I think it will be. So yeah, but yeah, totally recommend it, even though I've never gotten one myself. Those are the greatest recommendations. Okay, moving on to question number 5 from Amen Animations. This is a pretty deep question, like possibly the deepest question ever presented on this podcast. He asked, what purpose do you think stop motion was made for? Why do you use it, and how do you think it should be used? I asked him to clarify on this, and he said, why do you think the main reason is that creators started using stop motion? What draws you to stop motion, and how do you think that it should be utilized? To be a hobby, good as a career, or maybe something you do for a short amount of time and shouldn't do all very long? Okay, so you're asking, Eamon. Oh, by the way, Eamon's back again with another question. He did the 1-2 punch on this podcast with double questions. Let's see. You're asking, like, stop motion's fun and all, but what's the point? I think that's what you're asking. And that's a very valid question. Like, what's the point of animation? What's the point? Like, you get really good at it, and then you grow up, you don't have time for it, and you just forget about it, right? That's what I think a lot of people believe. And that's true for a lot of people. You know, they get really good at animation, develop like 5 to 8 years of skill, make some awesome animations, and then just stop doing it because they gotta get a job, they gotta live life, you know. And, you know, that's very common. What should stop motion be, though? Like, you develop this skill for so many years, and then you just drop it, and you don't really do anything with it. I mean, but, like, the reason I got into stop motion is simply because I've always been into filmmaking and, like, storytelling and stuff. I just love that type of stuff, and that's just stuff I've always wanted to do. So I came across a Lego stop motion, and I'm like, how in the world did they make that? Like, there is no way you can do that. And so I did some research, went down a rabbit hole, got a book from Klutz about how to make a Lego stop motion, read it, did all of the practice animations, and downloaded Stop Motion Studio, and I was in love with it. Like, I just loved the idea that you could tell your own stories with your Legos. Like, my brother and I had a huge collection of Lego, and we'd love to just play with it and just come up with stories and, like, goofy stories that we just, you know, made up as we went along. And that's how I made my stop motions in the beginning. I just had some minifigures, had a set, and I just moved them around. I didn't even have any dialogue planned. I didn't have a single script or anything. I just moved them around, animated at like 3 FPS, like 3 or 5 FPS, moved them around. And then as I moved them around, I just made up the story as I went along, and I knew what was happening, and I went from scene to scene. And then at the end, I just did the dialogue over it, and it was like, oh, here's what they're going to say here. Blah, 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 blah. And I just made the animation like that because I was so into, like, oh, I could tell stories. This is so cool. So that's why I got into stop motion, because it's all about storytelling. Stop motion, I think people get so caught up. I'm going to make a video about this, actually, here soon. I already have a script planned for it. It's going to be a really cool video. I think you guys will really like it. But I have... Like, there's this, let me back up. There's a lot of people that get so caught up in, like, the actual skill of making a good animation, but they forget, at least, I think a lot of people started out like I did and just saw it as a storytelling device. I don't know. I can't speak for everybody, but I believe that's why a lot of people got started, because they could just tell their own stories without a big budget, you know? And I think a lot of people forget that, and they treat stop motion as a skill that can be developed, and, you know, just get really good at animation and see how far you can get with it. And that's great. That's amazing. Stop motion is a skill that should constantly be developed. But we shouldn't forget the purpose of stop motion, and that is to tell a good story. And because that's what stop motion is. It is a medium through which you tell a story. Like, you could tell the same story through a live action film. You could tell the same story through a 2D animation, a 3D animation, a book. You know, I don't know how deep your story is, but stop motion is just a different way you can tell your story. And I just find that so fascinating. And I really want to get good at the storytelling aspect of animation, because I feel like that's a lost art in the community, of just telling good stories. Because if you have a really good story, animation quality, yes, it matters, but not nearly as much as the story and like how you tell that story. That to me matters 10 times more than whether you animate at 12 FPS or 18 FPS or 24 FPS. You see, it's all about the story. So I'm getting a little bit too excited about this. But I say all that to say, when you make stop motions, you're not just developing the skill of making an animation. You're developing filmmaking skills that you can apply. And not just that, it's just the fact that you're learning a skill, and I hope this makes sense, but you're learning how to learn something really well. That sounds a little weird, but when you learn how to learn something really well, you can take that principle and that skill set to whatever you do in your life. That's why I think it's so invaluable to just pick something you're really passionate about and learn all you can about it when you're young. Because when you go all in trying to get as good as you can at one specific thing, you can reap the rewards of that skill set for the rest of your life. I was going to say something. I forgot what I was going to say. Nope, I lost it. Anyways, but it's just so cool. When you look at it in that perspective, it doesn't seem like a waste of time anymore. You're learning valuable traits such as patience, perseverance, when your animation just isn't looking like how you want it, and maybe you're coming into some technical difficulties, you just persevere and make your video anyways. You're learning so many valuable traits that you can take on for the rest of your life. And I think that's just so cool. And I personally have learned to be like extremely patient by making stop motions. And I feel like I might be too patient. I don't know. But anyways, I think that's the real point, is to just learn a skill and get so good at it and just learn how to learn. I know we went really deep all of a sudden, but it was a deep question. I had to respond with a deep answer. But that's what I believe. And I think that's so cool when you see learning stop motion and getting good at stop motion from that perspective. I think that's just really cool. And yes, you could make this into a career. Like, you could get hired by Lego if you wanted. You could, you can do some paid gigs and animate maybe not just Lego, but like different stop motions. You could do promo videos for companies and like make a stop motion ad reel. Like, you could do so many creative things with this skill that not a lot of people know how to do. So it makes you very valuable. And I just think that's really cool. And it's all from just enjoying playing with Lego, and you develop this skill just from enjoying playing with Lego, which playing with Lego builds a lot of cool, creative traits in you as well. So it all goes hand in hand. I love that. I love that. Anyways, but yeah, you can make it a career if you really wanted to. And just get creative with how can you monetize your skill, and just really brainstorming how you can do that. Like, if you're a creative person, so like, you make creative animations, you're a creative person whether you know it or not. So you can come up with creative ideas to monetize your skill outside of YouTube, because YouTube AdSense, let's be real, it just ain't cutting it. But yeah, that's just it. I think that encapsulates what I think about animation as a whole, like a stop motion animation as a whole. So, with that said, let's move on to the next question from Minotaur Productions. this is going to be our last question. I'll save the next two for the next podcast because we're already running into like half an hour, and this can easily go into a 40-minute podcast. So, which is all right, but I like to keep it at half an hour so that way it keeps it nice and orderly, somewhat. He asked, Minotaur Productions asked, my question was, how do I get lighting that is as good as your lighting using a phone or DSLR? Also, I still have bad lighting even though we have 3 lights. Okay. So you asked whether you're using a phone or a DSLR. I'm guessing you're using a phone. I'm going to assume that. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But with the phone, it's a lot harder to get good looking lighting. Excuse me. It's not like impossible, but like the phone's sensor and like overall camera quality makes it so digitalized as opposed to a camera that has like a real raw shutter inside of it that can actually refract light and have that nice lens flare and all that stuff when you point lights into it, like easily get it to look cinematic. Like phones don't have that to that extent, but you can still make good lighting, especially if you have 3 lights. Like, you're already set. You already have the tools. But I think what you need to focus on is backlighting. What I mean by that is actually, let me not jump there. Let's go into the 3-point lighting. This will really help you since you have 3 lights. That's perfect for you. So you're going to have one light, like your biggest light, your brightest light. You're going to have that as your key light. That's going to light the face of your subject. And it'll be like a little to the side, but in front of your minifigure, assuming you're animating a minifigure. It'll light up like a side of his face, and it'll be the brightest light in your collection. And then you'll have a fill light. You can use this if you need. It's not always necessary, but the fill light is a little dimmer than the key light. It's going to be on the other side of the key light, lighting up the other side of the minifigure's front of his face. But it won't be evenly lit. You want to have a shadow, a noticeable, darker shadow on one side of his face, as opposed to the key light that's lighting up the brightest part. I hope I'm making sense with this. A diagram would be really nice to have right now. Oh, man. But you're going to do that, and then your last light, which will be like your hardest light, like the smallest light you have in your collection, you're going to have that as your backlight. And that light is going to do numbers to your lighting, because this will separate your minifigure from the background. It'll create this nice rim light behind your minifigure, and it'll make it look so good. You're going to have this light overhead the minifigure, but to the back a little bit, and then angled down towards the back of the minifigure. Kind of pointed towards the camera. I think, yeah. Something like that. You'll get it once you play around with it. You'll understand what I'm saying here. But that combination, you may not even need the fill light. You could use it for a background light to light up a dark spot in your set. You could use it for that. So try that out and let me know how that works out. And that should make your lighting look really good. And you can get good results with your phone. Don't be discouraged. It's easier to get good images with a DSLR, but with a phone, you just gotta put in a little bit of extra effort, but you can still get good results. So, with that said, that wraps up the questions for this podcast. Couple announcements. I'm sure you guys already know, but I took it upon myself to upload this podcast series on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Pretty cool. So if you want to follow me there, that'd be cool. I've already heard some good reports from people who say like, oh, this is awesome. I don't have to deal with YouTube ads, and I don't have to worry about my phone cutting off. I don't have to worry about my phone cutting off during the podcast. I can just listen on Spotify, turn my phone off, and I can just listen while I go about my business. So that's really cool. I didn't even realize how much of a perk that would be. But yeah, if you want a better listening experience, then I would recommend going to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Just look up the BrickFilmer Podcast on there, and you should be able to find me. And I just reached 2,000 subscribers. Let's go. Thank you all so very much for subscribing and, all that good stuff. I definitely have not processed that I reached 2,000 subscribers. It feels like 500 still to me, but I gotta make this contest video. I have it scripted, but I'm going to make it and upload it sometime next week. So hopefully I really hope I can. Let's see. Is there anything else? I feel like I was missing something. Oh, if you have any other questions that you would like to be answered in the next episode of this podcast, then be sure to comment below, because that is how I answer questions. So, and if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, just comment below on there, and I'll get to your questions there as well, because I can see those too. I don't know why I did that, but I did. Anywho, also, I guess I'll just keep reminding people in case I don't want to have anybody miss out. But I offer animation reviews and other stuff on my WAP, which is a really cool name for a website. But I offer animation reviews. You can click the link in the description and check it out. See if you want an animation review and improve your animations and make them really, really good. I also have a free newsletter. Yes, I'm probably the first animator who has ever started a newsletter. I know. I will own that. But in that newsletter, you will get weekly animation tips from me, and also some cool productivity tips for what I do to help me to make my animations. And so if you want those cool little bits of insights, then be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. Also, link in the description. And yeah, I think I've announced myself to the end of this podcast. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. See you next week, the week after next week, in the next episode. And until then, God bless you, and have an awesome rest of your day.